Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After running our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry, and Betty White, our sweet little bundle of white fur, is here. And we're back for episode 8 of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
We made it. Episode 8 is where the magic happens.
Woohoo!
As award-winning podcaster Flobo Boyce says, the term podfading is a real term, and a lot of people don't make it this far. So we are ahead of the game. Consistency is key, and I think that's correct with so much, right?
Oh, yeah. And without a doubt. I like the idea of the number 8. It's just...
Yeah.
It's a good round number for me. I like even numbers. So, no, I feel good about getting a number 8.
Yeah.
Well, I think we knew about the 8 before we started this, and
yeah,
it's all worked out pretty good so far. And to me, feels like we're just starting up. So that's a good thing at number 8.
Yeah. Flobo Boyce, if you're not familiar with him, he has a podcast called New Amsterdam, KNEW, Amsterdam. We were actually on his podcast last year, I believe.
Yep.
Before we started this podcast, we consulted with a bunch of different people who are, doing this the right way. And he is definitely one of those people. And he is the one who told us about the term podfading. I had never heard of that term before. He is the one who gave us a bunch of stats and a bunch of different things to do the right way. And anyway, we are so thankful to him. And so we feel really excited about episode 8. And we're actually recording this on the 1-month anniversary of our podcast. So cheers to us.
Cheers to us.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
We also want to take a moment to thank everyone who jumped on board with the launch of our podcast, who have been so supportive this first month. We're just so grateful to everybody. Yeah.
And with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the review of the week. This week's review comes from REWQ5Q. I would love to be able to pronounce what that is, but I don't know. So we're just going to say,
wow.
REWQ5Q. He or she said, loved it. Listen to the episode with Sutanya Daker's Dinner for One. Loved that conversation. It was so authentic and lovely. It made me then go and listen to the other guest episodes. I love the idea of having people on who inspire you to follow your dreams, to go after the life that you desire. I'm so happy to have found this podcast and hear about you cultivating the life that you want for yourself. I look forward to more episodes. I mean, thank you so much, REWQ5Q.
Yeah, these things really make our day.
They really do. And, we have been so fortunate with all of the reviews. And, yeah, and I'll just tell you that episode was so great and, so comforting still. I could go on and on about Sutanya, but we had so much wonderful feedback about that episode, like all of the guest episodes. But so many of you responded with how that evening, the last week when that launched, that you were cooking for yourselves, doing self-care practices, and it was so heartwarming. I actually sent a message to Sutanya afterwards, just, sort of giving her a wrap up, thanking her again for being on the show, especially because we took so much of her time. I took so much of her time. And she was just so moved by that. And then I also sent her some of the reviews that came in specifically about her episode. And she was just, so happy about it. And anyway, for those of you who also tagged her in some of the stories talking about how you were cooking dinner for yourself, and it was just so lovely, right?
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. I think we've topped ourselves every time with the interviews. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
They've all gone great, but it just seems like, well, and that's just natural. You get a little more comfortable, and we've kind of gone up, 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 and she was a good one to have.
Yeah.
In that progression.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to be our review of the week and get the chance to receive a gift from Sugar Wish, please take a moment and give us a 5-star review or rating. We have an easy link for you all to follow. It's lovethepodcast.com/ArnerAdventures.
Well, speaking of people responding in a positive way, we recently posted a blog called The Great Resignation. And wowzers, due to the response that the blog received, we thought that we would come back and do a podcast about that topic, the Great Resignation.
Yeah, there's topics that we will have that we sort of brainstorm thinking, yeah, we should blog about that. Or sometimes people ask us questions about things, then we'll blog about those topics of interest. But don't think we had a clue about the kind of responses we were going to get from people about this blog post.
So we decided, when we started getting all those responses, and then it was hitting the month anniversary of the podcast, we were like, you know what perfect timing to come back, touch base after we'd had some guest episodes, and talk about the topic. Apparently, it's a hot topic and one that resounded with so many people, the Great Resignation. Yeah.
The Great Resignation. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should talk about first what the term the Great Resignation means, where it came from and why we're talking about it.
Sure. So if you haven't heard about it, which would be really surprising, but who knows, the Great Resignation is a term that was coined by Anthony Klotz. Anthony Klotz is an associate professor of management at Texas A&M's Mays Business School. And Klotz described the term in a Bloomberg interview sort of at the beginning of the pandemic. And he predicted this unprecedented rise in voluntary resignations, like before it all happened. People voluntarily quitting their jobs. So that's what we mean when we say resignation. And what do you know? He was right. I don't like all these facts and figures. I think you can get kind of lost, especially with podcasts. So, but we'll just kind of throw these couple out there so you kind of get an idea that it's estimated that around 4 million people voluntarily, now this isn't talking about lost their jobs due to no fault of their own, 4 million people each month in 2021 voluntarily quit their jobs. And in 2020, about 3.5 million people quit their jobs each month voluntarily.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, when you read those numbers.
Yeah.
So the question we're sort of discussing in the blog is why? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
And there could be a lot of reasons depending on, on who you ask. And in the blog, we pointed that out.
The reason we really wanted to delve into this more is that when we put the blog out, we of course wanted to talk about it because it resonates personally with us, which we're going to talk more about that. But the people who were responding to it had different reasons as well, but more so than others went into more of one category, which we're going to talk about. But okay, so you might be saying, oh my gosh, that's so many people each month. What in the world were they doing? So a lot of people kind of used the pandemic influenced people to sort of look at their lives in a different light and reevaluate things and consider what matters.
Some people decided it was a perfect time to make their side hustle their full-time thing.
Yeah. Some retired early. A lot of people in the healthcare field and education field, which you can sort of imagine why, were like, hey, this is a lot to deal with. And this is the perfect time to retire and get the heck out of here.
And freelancing was a big thing. People opted that for their full-time work. And in fact, 2022 is being called the year of the freelancer.
Yeah.
The year of the freelancer.
Yeah, it is. 2022. Yeah.
2022.
It is. Some invested in cryptocurrencies, Bored Ape NFTs. I'm not even going to pretend to understand why being in the Bored Ape Yacht Club is something to covet. But, for some reason it is. And people are living the high life in that Bored Ape Yacht Club. So props to them. Props to them.
Everybody needs something to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People are working from home and then being forced to go back into an office. They had just enjoyed their autonomy and decided to quit and find something to do from home.
And, their pets were there and they were like, why are you going back? You've been here with me.
The pets.
Yeah.
I know the pets have been a big deal for people.
Yeah. I can't imagine leaving Betty now.
Right.
And then there are those people who have dealt with or had dealt with so much shit, being shit on and or had just had it. And they just cannot handle it anymore. And maybe they, knew their capacity. They know the risk, and the risk of leaving and being forced to find something else is worth leaving. And those people rage quit. And rage quitting it's a term we're going to talk more about, but rage quitting is still voluntarily quitting. Anthony Klotz, the professor who we talked about in the beginning, invented the term the Great Resignation. Well, he also touches on rage quitting. And he reminded us that you can only quit if you have the means to quit. But there are many people who took part in rage quitting who didn't have the means to do so. And guess what? Voluntarily quitting usually means that you don't qualify for unemployment. So they were so over it that they would rather face doing whatever it took, figure things out, than face another day of the dreaded workplace setting or environment that they had been experiencing day to day.
I think sometimes once you get out of the grind too, it's an easier time to make that decision because usually with that momentum you have going day to day, and there's something to be said about momentum.
Right.
You tend to just go with it. But having that break, I can see where people said, "The time is now."
Yeah.
I just got to put it all out there. It's scary as all get out, but I'm going to do it. And I point this out because someone commented and said, well, only people who have it really good can quit their job. And I beg to differ. There are more than a handful of people who respond to our blog stating that they into this category of rage quitting, individuals who didn't know how they were going to make ends meet. But things were so bad that they left and they took the risk and just figured it out.
We cannot wait to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sugar Wish. Now, if you aren't familiar, Sugar Wish is one of those brilliant businesses where you go, why didn't I think of that?
How many times have you wanted or needed to send a gift to someone and it was either last minute or you didn't want to send just another gift that was just going to lay around and take up space?
We have so much synergy with Sugar Wish.
Sugar Wish allows you to send a sweet gift to someone and the recipient gets to choose their favorites.
We've received Sugar Wish gifts and sent Sugar Wish gifts, and they are always a hit. You cannot go wrong.
It's super easy.
You just go to the website, sugarwish.com, choose the size of the gift you want to send, enter a personalized message and note tailored to the person you're sending it to, and it arrives to that person or pup via email or text.
The recipient then gets your message and then chooses what they want.
What? They have so many options to choose from. Candies, cookies, popcorn, snacks, cotton candy. When have you had cotton candy lately except for the state fair? Tea, coffee, and the best, Betty White's fave, dog treats and swag. Betty gets to choose from crunchy, chewy, jumbo, and training treats. It's a pup's dream.
All natural, preservative-free treats that are made with carefully selected, high-quality ingredients. They even have some grain, wheat-free options.
Perfect for your fur baby or the dog lover in your life.
Use code Betty White, that's all caps, one word, Betty White, to save $7 off of your gift. We also have the link in the show notes. Sugar Wish always saves the day.
Now back to the show. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that we talked about all the various reasons that people did leave their job, but a lot of the people who responded to us fit into that category of being fed up. We are not going to use the people who respond to us as the data pool of the people as to why, as the Great Resignation, population of why people quit. But we did think it was interesting that so many people responded and said, oh yeah, I left. I had just had enough. Or I had no idea what I was going to do when I left, but I decided that it was worth the risk because I couldn't take another day. Or, whatever their reason. There were a lot of different reasons that we were getting messages from people. And so I think it's interesting to at least point out, and then when we were reading about sort of preparing for the blog about rage quitting, and then when we were getting those responses going, wow, that is really more common than I think we thought, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's it could be called the big leap of faith too. It's just nothing like that had really come about in 100 years, and well, society was a little different back then too. So the way things change now, it was the perfect time to make a change.
Yeah,
and just put your cards on the table.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of more cliches, but that's the only one I got.
Not everyone who reads the blog listens to the podcast. So I just wanted to that's another reason why we wanted to do this. But I quit my job last year. I was part of the Great Resignation. When I say I quit my job, I mean, I have to work. So I quit working for someone else, that is. I do still work. I'm not in the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I work for myself. I feel like I want to be in that Bored Ape Yacht Club because Bored Ape sounds like they don't do a whole lot, but and a yacht club, it sounds, like they're on a yachts in the sun all day.
Where can you go wrong?
Yeah, but anyway, I do work for myself, and we can both speak from being poster children from burnout, and we recognize when we are on the cusp of needing to walk away. And so that's that. If you listen to the first episode of how all of this got started, we speak from experience. And, I had my reasons, which were knowing what it's like to work for ourselves, not planning accordingly to take care of our mental health, and suffering greatly. And even though I was working for someone else, I recognized all of the key triggers that were happening. And I felt like I was yet again in sort of that spinning wheel of not in the right place, the right time, the right moment in my life. I was just not in the right space. Rather than being unable to sort of properly take care of myself and all of that, I just decided that I felt like I wanted to dedicate myself to taking the risk and betting on myself, and join the ranks of others who wanted to control their own work life. It's also for that reason that I was able to notice that I was having a less quality of life while working for someone else. I know my own drive, the hard work and dedication that I put in. And so instead of using that hustle and drive for someone else, I opted to put it towards my own success. That's scary as hell. I'm not saying this is for everyone else. I'm not saying that I'm not even saying that this was something that was like, okay, it's easy peasy. I'm walking on easy street. It's not. It's scary as shit. I just decided it was worth the risk. I have I've told several people this, but I had an employer tell me once that I have more drive than a Bugatti. And I am not boastful of a lot of things, but for damn certain, I have drive and I have hustle. And I opted to bet on myself and be the Bugatti.
She does. There's no doubt, and in certain cases, you can see why this was the opportunity, and Shannon sure took it, and then we joined together and made this all work.
Yeah. I mean,
So
this whole thing has been our side hustle since we left our own business. And there just comes a time when you just decide that what's right for you and what's not.
it's not, yeah. With that being said, we received a lot of feedback about this. A lot of people, this resonated with the rage quit, or at least those people gave us the feedback, and as well as those who had suffered burnout or who had just been shit on and decided to do their own thing. Shit had hit the fan. They've been shit on, and the shit had hit the fan. Their inner entrepreneur came out and started their own thing.
I think it's interesting that we were sort of counting the people that we knew who are business owners and are at least having a side hustle. And there's so many that we know.
We do, and we've really started paying more attention to them too. With this just sort of jumps the interest up that we have the blog and all this, and we're really thinking about our friends who do their own thing, or the people we know, I should say, do their own thing.
It's interesting too, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, it's like BC and AD.
Yeah.
Used to go to blogger conferences and all of that. And most people that we ran into at those conferences, blogging and influencer marketing and all of that was their side gig. And last time that we circled back around, I guess in October, how many people said, oh yeah, I left my job and now I do this full time. I decided to go ahead and take the jump and do it full time.
It was part of the everyday conversation, it seems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe all of this should be called the Great Pivot. Maybe people would like the sound of that better if you called it the Great Pivot instead of the Great Resignation.
I like it. Has a nice sound.
Yeah.
It does sort of cushion it a little bit. Great pivot.
It's interesting that a pandemic, something on this massive scale, causes us to look at our lives and reevaluate and say, where's my life going? What will truly make me happy? Is it money? Is it working for myself? If I struggle to make ends meet, will that maybe be worth the risk? At least I'll be struggling for myself, controlling things myself.
Yeah. And there are some people who are judgmental of quitting your job and taking a risk, perhaps because it's not, the choice they would make, or not the way they've been sort of brought up to believe, or the way society, sort of molds you to believe. But it's because they wish they would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
We have people be critical of our choices, our lifestyle, living on love.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, as long as the life we live isn't harming anybody, who cares what you're doing for a living?
Right.
And
right.
as long as it's legal, it's not you're not harming anybody. And you should feel the same way too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. Yeah.
It's a really interesting time.
As long as you're not harming anyone,
Mm-hmm.
any animals, anyone's belongings, anyone's property, as long as you're not harming anything or anyone.
Which is the bottom line in just about any personal choice you make,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't care. You shouldn't be sending us any messages about what we do for a living. If you don't have anything positive to say, don't say it.
Somebody's mom once said that.
Yeah.
Everybody's mom once said that.
No, and I will say, for the most part, it was very positive that we received. We write these blog posts and schedule them and put them up and move on. And the day that they come out, we'll get texts or messages, and we're like, oh, okay, conversational. And you don't think much about it. And that day, the messages came and we were really surprised. And there was an email that came. I mean, had me in tears, in good tears, good, happy tears.
Yeah.
That was so moving. I mean, I said to you, wow, like just when you think this, you're just putting content out there and that you hope, oh, okay, maybe this is important. Maybe this is something that someone finds interesting. And then you see that, wow, this really was something that someone cared about.
It is a good feeling. Yeah. It kind of brings it all home, you know?
Yeah. On that note, we'll end this part of the conversation with a quote that was actually in that email that person sent to us. And I think it's a great way to end this part that person responded to the blog. And the quote is by Stephen Russell Hartz. And it is, "You should be the number one focus on your journey. Everyone benefits from that." And I mean, I now have it posted up above my desk. I just think that is, and it was a day that I needed that so badly. And that person had no idea what they were sending when they sent that. It was just so timely.
Oh yeah, no, indeed. I remember it well.
Yeah.
And well, this podcast asks the question of our guests, and we ask ourselves, what does a life well lived mean to you? This term, the Great Resignation, really relates to that question.
Yeah. And I hope this wasn't too much of a rant. I mean, we wanted to address some of the questions and comments we received, and also a hot topic that so many of you wanted to talk about. And I sort of wish this could have been a call-in show. I did make a list.
That's a whole nother chapter in our
and a lot more technology. I did make a list of people, though. I said at the end of the blog, if this resonates with you or something like that, respond. Maybe we might be interested in talking to you for a future podcast. And so I did make a list of people who would be really great future guests, though. So we'll see. People who did some really interesting things with their lives when they quit their job, and a lot of interesting rage quit stories.
Oh, rage quit stories. Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
If somebody's not happy with what you're doing or looking for resources to freelance or pick up a side hustle while you work towards your own Great Resignation, we put together a free freelance resource guide you can download. You can find it on our website at originated.com/resources. We'll also link that for you in the show notes.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic and the podcast in general. You can shoot us a message at hello@arneradventures.com. That's our email address. Or a DM over on the gram at Arner Adventures.
So until next time, enjoy the journey that you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye.